Welcome to Identity Theft Protections and Procedures provided by the Omaha EITC Coalition and Family Housing Advisory Services. Before we begin, let's talk about a few procedures with the webinar and a few of the features. At the top right of the screen, you'll see an arrow that will hide and reveal the communications window. Audio is available by using your phone or through the computer speakers. Everyone will be muted during the presentation, so if you have a question, you can type it in the chat box, or you can use the raise your hand feature and we will unmute your phone so you can ask your question. Questions are welcome at any point during this presentation. There's also a few other features under the view screen if you'd like to make the presentation larger in your computer. Your presenters today are Julia Craig and Ed Leahy. Julia Craig is the director of the Asset Management Program at Family Housing Advisory Services. She's been there for 17 years and has been involved in consumer education for over 25 years. Ed Leahy is the director of the Earned Income Tax Credit Program at Family Housing Advisory Services. He's held that role for 12 years and has been a community activist for over 25 years. Family Housing Advisory Services is working towards creating housing and financial stability for all. The Financial Management Program provides economic hope for consumers through education, case management, and asset building. And the Earned Income Credit Program advances financial empowerment, asset development, and community prosperity through quality volunteer tax return preparation, community partnerships, and strategies to improve savings. I'm going to turn it over to Julia to start helping us understand what is identity theft.
Good evening, everyone. This is Julia. Well, tonight the topic is kind of something that we've been hearing quite a bit on the news. There's lots of different conversations about identity theft, how to protect ourselves. So the goal tonight is to kind of introduce what it is and then how you can work towards protecting your credit, your social security number, and all of that. So basically, identity theft is a criminal that steals your data. They use it to engage in criminal activities without your permission. By criminal activities is, borrowing the social security number to obtain new credit, and then basically that's, they commit fraud by doing that. Identity theft, sometimes it's really hard to notice because unless you're checking your documents, you're checking your credit report frequently, it's very hard to notice that. Some of the identity theft trades would be stealing the personal information for goods and services. Sometimes impacts employment by fraudulent jobs available out there. Also with medical treatments, medication, we've had some cases where medical bills were applied to individuals where they never received treatment at a medical facility. And then also we've been hearing quite a bit of government services and benefits that they've been compromised. So let's kind of talk a little bit about examples of what an identity theft is. By stealing just basic information, name, address, phone number. If they have a date of birth and an address, they can certainly open a new credit card. Right now, they've been some changes where the social security number is in, or just the last 4 digits are displayed. By having the last 4 digits and some, like a date of birth, they can connect the full social security and open a credit card, apply for different benefits. Also, other types of identity thefts is through the Medicare card numbers, health insurance numbers. Those things are, they're not public. they're really easy to obtain through the Medicare office. They're also easy to obtain if they contact hospitals. That sort of information has passed and used. Also, the passport number and the driver's license number anymore is something that it's even available on the internet. So while the internet is our friend, it's also where a lot of this personal information is displayed and obtained from these criminals. Um, Financial institutions, at this point, they're doing a lot of work to protect. They increase their fraud department. They basically check new accounts, anything that's deposits, withdrawals. Well, it's a little bit harder to even open a bank account or a credit card at the bank. It's for our benefit. It protects us, so identity theft is not as common. Um, the other thing with identity theft, obviously, sometimes using a pretty easy password. If someone knows the individual, they have their Facebook information. They know things like the mother and father name or the middle initial. Usually, what forms a password that's used by individuals. In other protection measures right now, it's more like the fingerprint data. Um, they do a lot more scanning to identify the individuals to protect them from identity theft. So what is fraud? We're going to talk about the different types of frauds. We're going to talk about what a check fraud is, phishing, internet sales. Um, we're noticing we hear more at our agency about work from home type of scams. If it sounds too good to be true, usually it's not a good deal. And then also we're going to cover credit card and debt fraud, what card cracking scams are, and then we're going to review some of the loan scams available out there. All right, so what is a check fraud? Typically, they're stolen checks. A lot of times, the stolen checks or the criminal will actually go in and make new checks just using the writing number and the account number from the stolen checks and make it personal with their information, their name, their address, their phone number to match their identification number. So if they go to cash a check, their ID and the stolen check, the information on the stolen check does match. Also, the forged checks, even with employment checks, payroll, um, what the criminal does is basically same thing. They obtain the information for that employer and then actually issue checks from the payroll of that company to individuals that they most likely don't even exist. And then the counterfeit checks, those are like I stated, they're genuine accounts, they're real accounts, writing numbers and all that, and they're just basically made out with with the criminal's information on it. Let's okay, yeah. Alter checks are also either the amount of the payee has been changed or altered, and then using checks is an authorized form of credit is very common when it comes to identity theft. What is phishing? Basically, typically these criminals, and I call them criminals because I don't know what else to kind of to use, but basically they send out emails, other form of communication that looks really it looks real. But what they do is they ask for banking information, they ask for passwords, they ask for they just get the individuals to reveal their personal information, sometimes by addressing them in a friendly way, which it makes it look like they know a lot about that individual, and then the individual feels comfortable providing that information, an offer usually. If you give us this information, you obtain, you're going to receive money, or you're going to receive something that's going to be beneficial to that individual. Typically, the emails start out with "Dear valued customers." Not very many companies would start out with "Dear valued customer." Not very many companies really actually send out emails to individual. Um, if it's a generic greeting or if it does start out that way, kind of be aware of, kind of question that email. Also, emails or texts that include link sites. If you click on this site on this link, you'll be able to get some more information. By clicking on that site, they're able to read and pick up information from your personal computer at that point. Um, and then also attachments. Most of these emails or texts, they come with some form of attachment. If you click on the attachment, it will bring you to a different site, different information, and that's where your personal information is transferred at that point. Internet sales, very common. Right now it's available through Let Go, Craigslist, Facebook. They're different trade sites where they make it look like you're purchasing something, but they ask for account information. They ask for payment up front, and typically what happens, there's really no goods received after that. They just obtain the information, receive the payment, but no goods are transferred. At that point, I just worked with a client where she actually purchased a vehicle on Craigslist. The seller asked for a down payment, which the customer did go ahead and send in. She wire transfer money to this account um, provided by the criminal. And then at that point found out that there was really no vehicle available. The vehicle did not have a clear title, and she lost over $500 through that transaction. So kind of be aware of that. Work from home scams. Actually, I was listening to CNN last night. And there's a popular one now that's getting to the seasonal jobs, where these scammers were asking for a full application. So things like Social Security, date of birth, all that was had to be provided on the application. And at the end of the transaction, the individuals would receive an email back stating, you got the job, but in order to get the startup packet, you have to send us $200, $100, in order to be actually gain the employment. So be aware of that. Also, mystery shoppers. Mystery shoppers, they claim to, employees to send MoneyGrams. The employer sends counterfeit checks to the mystery shoppers, which is not. They advertise it as if you do this. If you go into Walmart and then just look at how they do business, you're going to receive a payment, such and such amount, but it's not a valid payment. Typically, the scammer will ask for a bank account to transfer the money in. Once the funding hits the account, it doesn't clear because it's not a true transaction. Um, Also, the car wraps, they advertise as Pepsi, Red Bull, but they're not actually. They advertise if you carry the emblem or the information on the side of your vehicle, you're going to receive $100, $200. Pay really close attention to what those, what the advertisement looks like. Go online and look at the true Rockstar, website to see what the emblem looks like. Or with Pepsi, usually there's something that does not match if you look at what they're selling versus the true company logo. So pay a close attention to that logo. The credit card, debit card fraud, that's basically, it's a easy way to get money or to obtain the cardholder's information. They actually install a card reader, and that's why a lot of companies are going to the chip, because it's harder to duplicate a chip versus the strip and back of the debit cards or the credit cards. The gas pumps are probably the most notorious for identity theft, just because it's very costly for the company. Not very many are accepting the chip at this point. And then also with the ATMs, they basically install a reader right in the ATM. Once you, the best way to really check and see if there is a equipment installed, try to pull the reader from the ATM. See if it's not installed correctly before you insert your card. That's a good way to kind of see if indeed is part of the equipment or something that was installed extra. One of the incidents that happened with Target, actually a reader was placed on all the card machines, and basically once the customer left, the information was transferred. um, Typically, it would be an employee of Target that would read it, um, run another transaction, and then they would just kind of walk away with cash from the register. Target, Wendy's, those companies that you see up there, they're doing a really good job to make sure that doesn't happen. They're trying to protect us customers from having to happen it again. How can you protect yourself? Again, be alert. Ask questions. What kind of card reader do you use? Am I allowed to use my chip versus the swiping? Most of these most of these businesses, they'll request credit instead of a PIN number. If you have that option, always go with the credit option. If they have the PIN number, that's where they can obtain a lot of your personal information. Card cracking scam, it's a fraud where, again, victims are persuaded to give that information. Usually comes across where it's this amazing deal. So if you're strapped for cash and you get a caller that says, you know what, if you let me use your account, just by giving me your PIN number, giving me your account number, we are going to transfer some money into your account just for letting us do that. Typically what happens is money does get deposited in that individual's account, but it's not, if used by the individual, what typically happens, it's not a true deposit. Once it doesn't clear like it should, so the individual is left with, if they use the funds, they owe the money, the bank money back for having used the money. Um, Usually the victims or the information is pulled through internet, Facebook. You guys are aware through Facebook, a lot of individuals have a lot of personal information out there, almost where they live, where they work. So it's kind of easy. It's pretty easy for the scammer to be able to pull that information. And by contact, once they have that personal information, they kind of call saying, this is your grandson calling, I need money. If you provide me with your PIN number, I can just transfer money to my account, or I'm stuck somewhere and I'm not able to get home. Can you help me out just by giving me your account information? I'm able to pay for the ticket. Or um, those are the most common identity theft that happens with the elderly, because the scammer knows a lot of personal information. They contact the elderly saying your grandson needs money or your granddaughter needs money, otherwise they're not going to be able to make it home. And typically when it comes to family or friends, we tend to try to help out. But the most common, I'm working with a couple clients where they actually provided their bank account information. The conversation from the scammer was, we are overseas, we have, if you let us use your bank account, you're going to receive a $5,000 credit in your bank account. So basically what they told the customer, money will be deposited in that account. We're going to take that money back out after 24 hours, but we're going to leave $5,000 available for you to use. What happened with this elderly that I'm working with, she thought she had $5,000 to spend. She wrote checks. She purchased items. At the end of the day, the $5,000 wasn't there. She now owes the financial institution over $6,000 because of fees and other fees added to that balance. So the victim is left with a loss in their account, which um, typically they have to pay back to the financial institution. All right, loan scams. Um, you guys probably see signs everywhere, payday lenders, cash advance companies. Those are typically short-term loans for individuals that, they need a little bit of extra cash from paycheck to paycheck. Um, and there's the legitimate companies out there, but also there's fraudulent payday lenders where they actually obtain the individual's bank account information stating that the funds that they're borrowing will be deposited in their personal account, and typically that does not happen, but they're liable for it because they've signed an electronic agreement stating that they're borrowing that money and they're going to pay it back. If you go, a true payday lender, the note agreement, the promissory note, it has to state all the information. It has to be all typed in. All the figures should be in the boxes before anything is signed. If there's missing information, there's boxes not checked. There's, the interest rate box, it's not filled in. Kind of question those type of notes because typically, once the customer signs, what they do is they go in and they increase the interest rates, they increase the APR, the amount that was borrowed. Um, Also, they do have your individual's banking information, and at that point, they sell and they transfer, the data from one company to another. A true payday lender um, should provide all the information in writing, and again, everything that they show you and before you signed, it should be the same copy that you receive at the end of the transaction. A typical payday lending in Omaha, if ever apply for a loan, 300% APR is the typical APR that we see. Those online payday lenders, they charge from 470% APR. So they're a little bit higher in their fees. If you go through the full loan agreement, there's additional in fees. Now, what's predatory about these type of loans? They're short-term loans. They have to be paid back in 30 days. Most individuals, if not paid back, they roll it over. A typical client that we see, they roll over their paid, their payday loan several times, 3, 7 times before it actually paid. It's paid back, and that's what increases the balance that they owe at the end of the day. And as we were pointing out, you can see some of an initial $200 loan at an interest rate of 625 APR. That's the APR, not the interest rate. And then it's paid back, daily accrual on that particular loan is 3.57, which that's the daily interest accrual on that loan. All right. Breaking news. We're going to talk about information breaches of these companies, organizations that you've been reading and hearing about, such as the Veterans Administration. The latest one is Equifax. Equifax, well, we did not have any control as consumers. Hackers got into the Equifax system and they did obtain personal information from their clients. While the social media is covering some of that information, is also not the true story. How do you protect yourself from that? Uh, Contact the company. If you contact Equifax, they'll tell you what really went on. They can, look up the information. Um, if your information was stolen, um, they'll they'll give you ways. They'll actually kind of talk you through, and they put alerts themselves. So it does. You're as a consumer, we're protected right away. Um, Regarding Equifax, at family housing, we do use Equifax. We do have a contract with Equifax. We pull credit reports, soft pulls. They're not hard pulls. Basically, the information that we obtain from Equifax, we don't use it to sell or share with anyone else. They're private, confidential credit reports, and it's all used for, to assist the clients repair credit or, establish credit at that point. That information is not compromised through us. We did verify with Equifax, and what we found that all the credit reports that we had pulled, the customer's information that we had used, it was not compromised because of the type of report that we're pulling. So the information that we use, it's safe with us. For the rest of the presentation, we're going to talk about what the impact is, the cost of identity theft, the action, the steps that you can take to protect yourself from happening again or being compromised from a different scammer.
Thank you, Julia. And this is Ed now to guide us through some of those steps and understand the impact to consumers. Identity theft is more than just compromised accounts. It really is a life-changing experience for those who have been victimized. How does identity theft hurt victims? Well, obviously there can be a direct financial loss. I paid money to a scammer. I'm not going to see that money again. There is damage to your reputation, which is your financial status, your credit score, when others are looking at your legitimate need to get a loan or something. There may be issues in obtaining employment or housing if your credit report has many different types of invalid accounts that you're unaware of that are out of date and accruing debt. An individual could have problems with the IRS receiving a letter saying you failed to report these 3 W-2s on your last return for so-and-so thousands of dollars, and therefore you are owing more money to the IRS. The problem being I didn't work there. Those weren't my jobs and my income was reported correctly, but somebody else is using my social to have a job. There could be possible civil judgments or even criminal records that could involve you if your name, address, personal information, social security number has been used. Of course, that's an emotional burden for a lot of people because suddenly my life has become a mess and it is out of my control. And there's time and cost for you to repair the damage to your accounts and to your reputation, and that may take some time to do. So the impact is significant. When it comes to tax identity theft, usually a criminal has been filing a fraudulent return using another person's social security number. They may be claiming someone else's children as their dependents in order to claim tax credits and increase the refund. Many times if a taxpayer dies in the year and some criminals read the death notices, if they come across that person's information, they may submit fraudulent returns using that deceased taxpayer's information. Or, as was previously mentioned, earning wages under another person's social security number for the IRS leads you to the true person's social security number and the accusation that you have not reported so-and-so additional income. How do you know if your tax records have been affected? Well, usually an identity thief is using a legitimate taxpayer's identity to fraudulently file a tax return and claim a refund. Generally, the identity thief is using a stolen security to file social security number to file a forged return and attempts to get a fraudulent refund early in the filing season, January, February, as soon as the IRS begins accepting tax returns. You might be unaware that this has happened until you file your returns sometime later in the season and discover that two returns have been filed using your same Social Security number. Be alert to the possible identity theft if you receive an IRS notice or letter that states more than one tax return for you was filed, or you have a balance due, or a refund offset, meaning IRS kept your refund, or had collection actions taken against you for a year in which you didn't file a tax return, or IRS records indicate you received wages from an employer who's unknown to you. In fact, just this very afternoon, we had a customer come in with such a letter from IRS who said, I didn't work at these places in Wisconsin and in Oklahoma. Most often, if someone is filing fraudulent returns with your Social Security number, it's not in the dozens, it's in the hundreds of returns. And then that can become quite hairy and burdensome for the true taxpayer to sort that out. So it's time to take action. What are 10 practical steps that you can do to protect yourself and resolve identity theft issues? First, if you believe you are a victim of identity theft, the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, suggests that you take immediate action and keep records of every conversation and copies of all correspondence you have with any company or agency in attempting to resolve this. The more records you have, the better to protect yourself and prove your case. First step would be check your credit report. For those on the call locally with us, you can check your credit report through one of our credit counselors at Family Housing. Our contact phone number is there. Or you can request a credit report from one of the credit reporting agencies, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. Or you can follow these simple steps to get your own free credit report from annualcreditreport.com. That is truly the only free site. That is a government site that allows you to pull one credit report per year from each of the three agencies. In order to do that, you can read all the variety of steps there, but it's important to have some personal information available so that you can confirm your identity by recognizing, did you ever take a mortgage out with this bank? Where did you ever live at this address? You can request a credit score, though usually there is a additional fee for that, so you might need your debit or credit card when you are pulling your credit report. The cheapest is about $15.95 to see your credit score. Otherwise, you can view and print your own credit report and then review it in greater detail, either on screen or after printing it. When you have finished reviewing and printing and you think you're done, you just click on return to annualcreditreport.com, which safely and securely closes your open account that you just checked, and then you can close your browser on the computer. But that's one additional step to take. Make sure that you are exiting a program before you just close off and leave your information open on the internet. The second step would be to consider placing a fraud alert. So you have a right to have a fraud alert placed in your file if you believe that you have been a victim of identity theft. You can do that simply by calling one of the three credit agencies, and we'll have their information available to you in a later slide here. And that agency will also alert the other two agencies so that your fraud alert stays in your file. An initial fraud alert entitles you to a copy of all the information in your file, which is a little more detailed than just your credit report from each of the three agencies. That alert stays in your file for 90 days, and it is appropriate to do if you think that, well, my wallet was stolen, or if you inadvertently clicked on a link in your email or text and you became victimized by a phishing scam. There is the possibility of an extended alert that entitles you to 2 free disclosures within a 12-month period, and this extended alert will stay in your file for 7 years. If you ask for an extended alert, though, you will have to provide an identity theft report from the consumer.gov or the Federal Trade Commission. An identity theft report includes a copy of the report you have filed with a federal, state, or local law enforcement agency, and additional information about the consumer reporting agency may require you to submit, perhaps a copy of your Social Security card or a letter from one of your accounts that is true and in your name. Fraud alerts, again, in summary, are for 90 days or renewable in an extended way for 7 years. You're entitled to 1 free credit report in that initial fraud, and you can request others by contacting the agencies, and this is their information for each of them, both their phone number as well as the official websites of the credit reporting agencies. Creditors should take reasonable steps to verify your identity. So if you are initiating a conversation with someone, I need a loan, they should be confirming who are you and asking you for proof of that. But others will just kind of insist on that information or other fees up ahead, and that can be inappropriate. A credit freeze is a different thing. That requires you to make a request in writing to each credit reporting agency. What a credit freeze will do is block any new credit on your account, even one that you initiated. And it remains effective until you request to have it lifted. And sometimes that lift can be a tight turnaround. So if you are planning on getting a home equity loan to build a new deck or something and you want to go into the bank but you have a credit freeze on, you may only have 48 or 72 hours to take that action and get approved for that credit. There can be fees, and usually there are with a credit freeze, but that can be reduced or even eliminated if you submit a police report or an identity theft report when you are writing the credit agencies for that freeze. The third step is to make sure that you are exercising your rights to information available about you. Not just your free credit report, but the information in your file, what's known as file disclosure. Once a year, you have a right to a free copy of that information from the credit reporting agency, and if you believe there is inaccurate information due to fraud or identity theft, then you can obtain additional disclosures and protections from the Fair Credit Reporting Act. You can check out the ftc.gov/credit website for more details on that. Once you are aware that you have been victimized, it's necessary for you to close all accounts that have been tampered with or have been opened fraudulently. And so you have the right to obtain documents from these creditors relating to fraudulent transactions made, how much was charged, what is the account number that was opened using your personal information. Call and speak with someone at those companies who is in the security or the fraud department. Everyone has that these days. JCPenney, call and ask to speak to the fraud department if you feel you've had an issue with one or another company. Follow up in writing and include copies, not originals, of supporting documents. Send your letters by certified mail so that you get a return receipt that you can document when the company received that correspondence, and keep a file of your correspondence. You've become the victim, so unfortunately the burden falls to you to maintain and prove your steps towards working towards your innocence. And while that can be painful and emotional to do and can even deepen that sense of victimization, it is your best bet to get out of it. Keep an accurate record. You should also file a police report. You can get a copy of the police report and police number that you can submit as proof that you have been a victim of identity theft. My purse was stolen on such and such a day at this location. My checkbook was taken and I became aware that money was withdrawn from my account. It's a miscellaneous incident report. And, you know, don't call 911 for that. Call your local office. In Omaha, you would call the non-emergency number of the Omaha Police Department to make that report. And then, unfortunately, as a victim, you have to pay $5 to get a copy of that report in 4 to 5 days. Again, the burden falls to you, but having that report is essential to helping to prove your innocence and your lack of responsibility for what is being charged in your name. You can also file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission. And this is an affidavit that's online. You can do it by phone. The address is there. And by the way, this session is being recorded, so you can revisit this information. And the PowerPoint is available to you and will be sent to all participants in an email after viewing this live presentation. You have the right to obtain information from a debt collector. If you ask, a debt collector must provide you with certain information about the debt you believe were incurred in your name by an identity thief, like the name of the creditor and the amount of the debt. You have the right to ask that a consumer reporting agency block the information in your file if you believe that results from identity theft. Again, protecting your reputation, what is available when you legitimately look for credit and others are looking at your file, have those fraudulent accounts removed from your report. You may also prevent businesses from reporting information about you to credit reporting agencies if you believe that information is a result of identity theft. And again, you want to be talking to the fraud department at companies and or their internal security departments. If you feel your taxes have been affected or you prepare your own return using one of the variety of softwares available, or you go to a commercial preparer or to a volunteer income tax assistance site and you receive a call that your return has rejected, it will reject for a variety of reasons. One, it will say that the primary social is locked because the taxpayer is deceased. I'm not dead, I filed my own return, or information may not be eligible for you to file a return electronically. You might receive a letter from the IRS called Letter 4869C, in which you will have to confirm other information, not only about your tax return, but about you and how you have filed in the last several years, etc. Preparers will often receive, or again, if you file your own return, a reject code, meaning that your return was not accepted and processed by the IRS, of a code 12 or an indicator called IND-178. If that's the case, you may need to request from IRS the ID protection PIN number. It is a 6-digit number that represents for the IRS that this is your true authentic return, and then the IRS rejects any other return submitted in your Social Security number. You don't want to request this number unless you have been victimized through your tax records with your Social Security number, because this is a lifelong process for you. Each and every year, IRS will send you a new 6-digit code that you must include on your return. If you don't include that on your return rejects, You can resubmit it with that 6-digit code, but you have just welcomed yourself into the world of extreme refund delay, because IRS will certainly look more closely at your authentic return and any others filed and that ID PIN number to try to separate out, but your refund will take a long time to get to you. What do you do if your tax records have been affected by identity theft? You want to fill in the identity theft affidavit, the IRS form 14039. You can download it in English or Spanish from irs.gov by using that form number in the search engine, or you can certainly ask any preparer or your VITA site coordinator for that information. We actually have little kits that we give people when they're affected that include these 10 steps and the affidavit and the recommendations for the other types of reports that you should file. Protecting your tax records is, through that 6-digit PIN number. And you have further questions, you can always reach the IRS Identity Theft Protection Specialized Unit at the 1-800-908-4490 number there, and they can also assist you in requesting and applying for a PIN number. Again, you don't want to request this PIN number if your information has only been compromised. You're one of a number of credit card users that went to Sonic and your information could have been exposed or done in a limited way. Just because you're identified as part of a data breach in a company, but you didn't experience any other fraudulent activity, isn't a reason to get the ID protection PIN number for your tax return. If your credit card or checkbook was stolen and immediately charges were made by the thief before an alert was or could be posted, again, not a reason to necessarily request that ID PIN number. You definitely want to have that ID PIN number if you become aware that your Social Security number has been used fraudulently, either to get a job by another, income was claimed under your social, or you are aware that a fraudulent return was committed. And so we'll go back to Julia now to talk about how do we reduce the risk to us and protect ourselves even further.
All right, great information. Thanks, Ed. So how do you protect yourself? What are some things that you can be doing? Just kind of be aware of. You want a price. You receive a call and you say you want a price, but you can't receive the price until you send us some money. A lot of times send us money for shipping. Stop. Do not send any money. If you want a price, you should not be paying, you should not be paying out of pocket. Do not wire money to collect the price. By wiring the money, you're, more than likely you're not going to see that price at the end of the day. If you have a Medicare card and you receive a call or a letter stating we're going to issue, the scammer will say we need to issue a new card. Stop at that point. To protect yourself, call Medicare right away. 1-800-Medicare. Let them know you received that call. You already have a Medicare card. Why should you need a new one? And more than likely, they'll let you know that it was not Medicare calling. Medicare does not call their customers. Any information, any data that needs to be sent out, it's usually via email. Via mail. Someone calls you to ask you to donate money to a charity. Stop. The first thing you want to do is, okay, I'm going to call the charity. May I have your name and phone number? And I will call you back. More than likely, that individual will hang up the phone at that point. And again, do not donate money by wiring the money to that account. What we found is that there's no such, the account is compromised. There's no way to be able to refund that money back out of those accounts that the scammers use. Other things, Other things that you can be doing to reduce the risk of becoming a victim. Protect your personal information. Do not carry a lot of your Social Security card. Do not carry a checkbook in your wallet. Also, do not have a lot of debt on your smartphone. Now we use smartphones for everything. We have applications. We have, our PIN numbers saved. Once you lose that phone, the scammer or the criminal will have all that information. Your Social Security card should be stored in a safe deposit box. It should be stored in a safe place. Don't leave your personal information in your vehicle. We have a lot of I know my daughter is she'll usually leave her checkbook or deposit slip. If someone breaks in that vehicle, they're going to have a lot of personal information. Also, if you receive any paperwork, any statements, any important documents, they should be shredded. From time to time, the community does have shredding days. If you don't have a shredder of your own, you can bring them, and that's all for free. So just save all the information in a secure box, and then you can utilize the community shredding days to get rid of your important documents. Don't give out your personal information through the mail, through the phone. If someone from the bank calls you stating that there's something going on with your account and they need to check into it, if it is the bank calling, they'll have your account information. If they start asking you for your bank account information or for your PIN number, again, just say, give me your name and number, I will call you back, and then right away contact your bank and let them know that individuals are calling you about your bank accounts. And keep your information secure at home. I know a lot of people don't use safety deposit boxes anymore, but I'm still, they're not very costly, and it is a truly secure place to keep all that personal data. If you use your computer, make sure that your firewalls, anti-spam virus software is up to date. You can visit onguardonline.gov, and it will give you true, because again, that also could be a scamming where they say we provide you with anti-spam viruses software, where it's not a true company providing that the security for you. Contact onguardonline.gov, and they would be able to tell you if it is a true legitimate company providing that spam. Don't click on links sent into, we kind of mentioned at the beginning, dear valued customer, click on this link or click on this attachment. Be really careful. Once you click on it, it's really hard to get rid of that spam from your computer, and it will cost you a lot of money. Other things, monitor your accounts, review your financial statements. If you have several credit card statements that come through the mail, and they usually get there at about the same time each month, if you don't receive one, don't just think, oh, great, I don't have to pay that bill. Contact the company and say, hey, I did not receive my statement. A lot of the identity theft happens in the mailbox. Individuals, they know what type of mail you receive. They go through the mailbox. They obtain they get a copy of that statement. Now, most companies, your JCPenney's, Kohl's, when they do mail out statements, they do prefer on the online statements, but if they do mail out statements, they actually don't even put any of the accounts information on that statement, and that's for your protection. We also see on the credit history, they used to provide the last 4 digits of the account numbers. They're no longer, the credit reporting agencies no longer request any of those account numbers. So confirm your statement. Make sure that information is, gets to you in a timely manner. Ed mentioned freeannualcreditreport.com. You pull it for free. You do have to provide information that only you would know unless you were a victim of identity theft. My suggestion to you is, because you only receive 1 free credit report per year, my suggestion would be pull the first credit history, TransUnion. 4 months later, pull Equifax. 4 months later, pull Experian. That way, all year long, you're able to obtain and review that information. And then if there's any identity theft or anything that does not look correct on it, contact your the 3 credit reporting agencies and let them know. And make copies of everything. If you have credit cards, actually make a copy of the front and back of the credit card. Make copies of your debit card, any PIN numbers, and again, those documents should be stored safely in a safety deposit box at the bank, or you having it at home. If you think you're a victim of identity theft, contact that creditor right away. They all, as that mentioned, they have their fraud department. File a report with the fraud department, and then also request that you signed a affidavit, so that way they have it on file stating it wasn't me making these charges on my credit report. My other suggestion is, if you like to shop online, do not use your debit card. If the debit card information is stolen, it's going to make it harder to dispute the charges, and also it's going to take a long time for you to get that money back in your account. Some protection, just open one account where you just have enough money to make that purchase, so the scammer cannot take the money that you need to pay your bills. They just have enough money just for that purchase, or use a credit card. It just happened to me the other day. I ordered some tickets. The purchase did not go through because the tickets were sold out, but I pulled my statement, my credit card statement, and I had a charge for those tickets. I just made one call to Discovery, and it was taken care of within minutes. They reversed the charges and basically went back to the creditor. So it's a lot easier to get your money back if you use a credit card versus a secure debit card. Protect your Medicare card. Obviously, if you frequent the doctor's office, they have that information. If there's no changes, they don't need to ask every time. Protect your personal information at home. When you file insurance claim, take pictures of everything that you own, everything that value, and also store it in a safe deposit box or someplace safe. Review, make sure you open and review your mail, emails. When visiting the doctor's office, right now technology is great. You can actually do a web, you can visit your doctor online versus actually going to the doctor's office. Ask what their policy is. What are the protection policies that they have, with your data? And, the Better Business Bureau, we see a lot of scammers that go door to door. Your roof looks like it needs repairs. We're here to do the service for you. If they're knocking on your door, just get their information. Do not give them your personal information. Do not give them any money. Just let them know that you'll get back to them if you need their services. A lot of scammers, they look up neighborhoods with elderly and they knock on their doors for services and assistance. So kind of be careful of that. And remember, IRS, the Veteran Affairs Office, they do not call, they do not, they do not send emails. They always do it through the mail. You'll receive an official letter from the IRS. You'll receive an official letter from any government agencies. They never really call or send out emails. Go to phishing at irs.gov or any type of government office. They have a site that you can basically file the complaint stating that you received that call or that email. And if it sounds too good to be true, again, it probably is. Never trust a company, a person that is insisting that you send money to them via MoneyGram, Western Union. Those are really hard transaction to basically track, and most of the time you will not see your money back. Be careful with those prepaid cards, such as My Vanilla, Green Dot. Those are even gift cards. There's a huge scam right now in our community where individuals basically sold credit card numbers and created their own credit cards, and they're using their credit cards to purchase gift cards from iTunes, Amazon, even locally. and then they sell them for a lower price. I'm going to sell you a gift card of $20 for only $10. Be careful of that. Those are usually stolen, and you're not going to be able to use them. Never give out online banking information, especially your password username. Again, if somebody's calling you saying that they're from your bank and they're asking for your username or password, they should not, and they should not need that information. Store your PIN number. Make it a little bit harder. Don't use your address for a PIN number, because that's really easy for a scammer to be able to figure that out. Using credit function, not the debit function, would probably be the safer way to do it. If you're at a gas pump and that you have the option between credit and the PIN number, use the credit option. That way you don't have to key in the PIN number, and that's how that information is transferred and stolen. Resources to take steps, to protect yourself. Visit www.identitytheft.gov. It gives you step-by-step how to protect yourself, and also if you become a victim, how to do that. Medical theft and child ID theft. The information is on the bottom of the page. Just kind of follow the step-by-steps that they provide for you. Sample letters for identity theft, so you can provide it to the creditors, you can provide it to the fraud department at the bank. They give you sample letters, you just have to insert your information. And then also FTC Consumer Response Center, you can file a complaint and they will reply and they'll investigate that complaint. So www.consumer.gov, identity theft, has a lot of great information that you can use. Identity theft, it could happen to any of us. Obviously, we kind of see it through, even with Equifax. We did not cause it. It's something that just happens. But if you're aware and you protect yourself, you're not going to be there's easier way to walk away and not have such a costly, and as Ed explained, it's the private information that you lose, the time that you lose in order to recover and protect, protect yourself from that happening.
So at this point, we will open for any questions, or again, for those watching the live on version, I'll unmute phone lines in a moment, or you can use the chat feature. I also do want to list and leave up here on the screen our contact information if you have any questions or needs, and we will be posting a recording of this session on the website at familyhousingincorporated.org or omahaeitc.org, and you can certainly contact Julia or myself with any further questions or needs that you have. At this point, I am going to end the recording, and so we'll take any questions from our live online people, and we thank you so much for your attention today.